Richard Skipper Celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is about celebrating. It's about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists. Life is truly about celebrating if we take the time to do so. What are you celebrating today? There are all these odd holidays that we could be celebrating today. Did you know that today is National Break the Monotony Day? Do you have monotony in your life? There's been a lot of monotony in the world in the last couple of years. Today is also National Valerie Melotti Day. So we're going to celebrate Valerie today and so many things. Valerie, what are you celebrating today?
Oh my goodness. Every morning I wake up and I just celebrate life, love, happiness, health. I have my family in town, my mother, my stepfather's cousin, and a dear family friend. So I'm celebrating them. And I have 4 kids and 3 dogs. So I have a ton to celebrate every single minute of every day. And I'm celebrating being here. Thank you so much for having me, Richard. This is such a joy and a pleasure.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you're here. Today is also National Senior Citizens Day. So we will celebrate your parents being here. And I'll tell you a very interesting bit of trivia that I discovered today. On this day in 1911, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre Museum. And believe it or not, the Mona Lisa was not famous until it was stolen. And because of the notoriety of it being stolen, it became world famous. So the question is, was that a publicity stunt? Or not?
I can't answer that question, but I went to the Louvre and I saw the Mona Lisa. And what I was shocked about is how small it was, because it has this large, large presence. And yet in person, it's tiny. And the line is very long to see it.
Well, the interesting thing is what we perceive of art. I mean, some art becomes art for the sake of becoming art.
Okay.
And some art is art because it just happens to be art. What is art to you?
Art to me is an expression of the heart. So it's really anything that comes from the heart and then moves into another medium where it can be shared. We can share our hearts, obviously, with people directly. But to be able to share our heart and our art with the masses, I think is the real thing to celebrate. It's the real joy and responsibility as well. As artists, I think we have a responsibility.
Now, you live in a household filled with art because your husband also is an artist.
He's amazing. He's in Central Park as we speak.
That's right.
He's doing that huge show with Clive Davis. He's particularly doing it with Barry Manilow. Welcome back, New York. We love New York City. I'm not exactly sure what the title became. They have a huge New York City, NYC emblem set up. And I just hope the weather holds up. I know things are very questionable in New York right now with the weather.
I think the weather is going to hold up tonight. I truly do believe that. It's tomorrow that we are concerned about. My hope is your husband, Barry Manilow, and everyone else that's here for the concert will hold off on traveling until Monday.
Well, that might have to happen. They were scheduled to travel tomorrow, and they're trying to move their flights much earlier so that they can avoid the weather conditions. We'll see what happens. You know, these are things that we can't control. Whether or not we like it, weather happens. So, we just go with the flow. That's life also.
So let me ask you this, because I've always wondered, in a household, my husband is a landscape architect in a completely different business. But you and your husband actually create art together.
We do.
What is the secret in terms of a household where both partners create together?
Well, I think in marriage in general, you create together. So we're taking it to the next level. And so there's kind of next level challenges, but there's also next level opportunities to go within and to, the same things that apply to marriage in general, like you choose your battles, for example, right? We don't fight about the little things. We have to really look at, is this worth it? Is it worth disrupting things? So we work together at the recording studio that we have, and we've been working together on musicals. He's my composer. He was my musical director. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for our relationship to grow. And, whether it grows more together or more apart, we'll see. That's life too.
Is it the work that brought you together, or did you or did that come together as a result of your marriage?
So how we met is a gentleman who was my mentor, had been mentored by my husband. My husband had just joined back with Valerie Manilow. This was 2004, and they had their first 4 days off on their tour, and it was in Chicago where I lived. And so my mentor invited me out to meet his mentor, and a year later we got married. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And then I put a lot of my career on hold for the last 16 years so that he could do his career and I could raise the kids. We have 4 kids together. So that's a huge undertaking and a wonderful opportunity for growth and love and celebration. So we have our oldest just turned 15 and our youngest just turned 5. So we have everybody in the house, and Joey is 70. So we have a senior citizen. We can celebrate him today too. And, we have a toddler. So we have almost everything. We don't have an infant anymore, but we've got the toddler, we've got a child, we've got a tween, we've got a teen, we've got a middle-aged woman, and then we have a senior.
I asked, how long has Joey been with Valerie Manilow?
Well, him, I believe, 87 to 90 or 91, and then back from 2004 until present.
Because I knew Barry's mom, Edna, very well.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So
I know that we have some friends in common. Yeah. Barbara Brighton in particular wanted me to say hello to you from her.
Oh my God, what a small world.
Shout out to Barbara Brighton, who was on my original demo for the Me Too musical. She sang Anything Can Happen on that. And she's just such a dear friend. She's part of our family. And we have other fun friends in common. Jeffrey Mack, the designer. I plan on having him as my designer for the show. And we go way back to Chicago when he was still in school. And Joanne Bethel, of course, from Chicago the musical Chicago, and from Valerie Manilow. So she'll hopefully, I know she's busy, but hopefully we'll get her on board too.
There are so many layers that I want to unwrap today with you. I don't even know where to start, but I want to talk, first of all, I want to go way back to where it all began for you. I always like to go back to the 5-year-old self, because that is, for me, the purest self. It's when you start school, kindergarten, most likely. You start school, peer pressure is placed upon you. You start becoming what your friends want you to become, what your teachers want you to be or not to be. What were you like as a 5-year-old?
Oh, I was exactly like I am now. I was very positive, very energetic, very artistic, very musical. At 5, I started playing piano. I actually studied with a gentleman named Edward Mandello. He was from New York, but he had moved to Chicago, and he had never taken a child student on before, but he took me because I was incredibly mature. I had actually started working as a child when I was 4 as a model, a professional model. So I had already known what it was like to really focus. And also I had started reading at age 3. So I was able to read music at age 5. And so he took me on. He played the organ at Rockefeller Chapel in Chicago, where I'm from. So that was a lot of fun. And he would let me play the organ at the end of class. If I, was a good girl and I had done all of my practicing and I had focused during class, he would let me play the organ at the end. And that was so fun. Of course, in the beginning, I couldn't reach the foot pedals. So he'd play the foot pedals and I would just play the 2 tiers of the organ.
Wow.
But it was a beautiful pipe organ.
And were your parents in the business?
No, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, my father discouraged me a lot. My father and my stepmother, and oddly enough, my stepmother's name is Valerie. So that was even more hurtful because I was little Val and she was big Val in the household. And she told me I couldn't sing to save my life when I was 5. And my father was very much like, oh, it's a nice hobby. What do you want to do for a real job? That sort of attitude. So I was discouraged and I went down other paths and tried to live somebody else's truth, and it just doesn't work. I actually was held up at gunpoint in New York City. This was back in the 90s when I lived there. And the first thing I heard was, I'm going to sing. I could be dead anyway. And so I went back to Chicago and I started singing with Bill Porter Orchestra, and they're an amazing talent. They backed up Frank Sinatra for many years and all the greats. It was incredible to be backstage with them and just hear all the stories and the gems of how Peggy Lee did things, how Judy Garland did things. It was amazing. Nat King Cole, amazing, amazing stuff. So I feel so honored and so privileged to have had that opportunity. And maybe I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I wasn't discouraged. So sometimes I think celebration comes in a funny package.
Absolutely.
It's what we expect. Another thing that I'll mention, because we're talking about my musical, #MeToo, is that I was sexually abused starting when I was 5.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You. Yeah, that was definitely, looking back on it, you can't make that connection of why a child would be exploited like that or abused. It just doesn't make sense. And yet I can celebrate it now because I can connect with others and I can help others. I was very lucky. I didn't come forth to my family for 12 years. I was 17 years old when I actually told them about the abuse that started when I was 5. But they were very supportive. My mother helped me find help through the YWCA. And everybody believed me and gave me a safe place to express my truth. And that's the first part for healing. And that's one of the things that's so important for my musical.
I hope you don't mind my next question that I'm going to ask, but the abuser, was this someone within the family or was this someone outside the family?
It was somebody within the family, older than myself. And one of the things that was very interesting for me, because, when you're 5, you're 5, and then you become 10 and you're 10, but you don't see the changes that occur. So one thing that was a big deal, it was my 16th birthday, and my abuser was there, and there was a family friend and her daughter who was 5. And I saw, as a 16-year-old, what a 5-year-old is like. And then I realized this is very wrong what happened. A 5-year-old wants love, they want attention, and they deserve it, but they don't deserve to be taken advantage of and abused.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was this almost an out-of-body experience for you, seeing that 5-year-old self? Was it almost as if you were seeing yourself within that 5-year-old child?
It's transdimensional. I don't know if I would say out of body. If anything, it was probably like very much in my body, like, whoa, wait a second. It's huge to have that realization. But it is transdimensional because it's almost like I became my 5-year-old self. Last night, for example, I was out and I got to see a friend of mine. He's a great artist, Carlos Rolland, and he's got an exhibit right now in Chelsea, closes on the 24th, so go out and see that. And he also has an exhibit that's running through September, part of September in Tokyo. And I hadn't seen him in 25 years, okay? I was actually like, are we going to recognize each other? And we're wearing masks, And of course, immediately the eyes, bam.
Yes.
The soul, we see each other, we know each other. But the greatest gift was that we became like teenagers again. It became like from when we met. There was still that connection. So that trans-dimensional experience is something we can have all the time. And it's something that we can celebrate, even though it was so eye-opening and heart-wrenching and gutting. You know, I mean, it hit me in several places. It still is a celebration because I've moved forward. And I can also see that. I can see I'm not 5 years old. Obviously, I'm not ever going to be 5 years old again, but it's
that
also
5-year-old self is always within you.
Always within you, and always someone that we should celebrate, you know. And one of the things that I did during the shutdown is I really had a relationship with my inner child from all the different times, and being the mother that my mother couldn't be, being the mother that my stepmother couldn't be, you know, and offering that sense of safety and kindness and celebration. So I consider all of that a gift, even though
when I get frustrated with someone, or if I'm in an argument with someone, I always, in my mind, imagine them as a 5-year-old. And I imagine where they're coming from as a 5-year-old. Because all of us come from an area of want or need. I want to go back to when you did, come out and tell your family. Mm-hmm. What was the catalyst that brought you to the point where you were able to tell them?
So I went to college at 16. And shortly after that, I turned 17. I'm born in October. Mm-hmm. And I started having a lot of nightmares and having a really hard time sleeping. There was a lot of sex around me and a lot of things coming up for me. Unfortunately, I was also abused by a stranger when I was 7 years old. So I had already multiple incidences, one that happened one time and then one that happened many times. And I was having a hard time finishing the school year. And so I reached out to my family. And then when I came home from school a month early, I told them why. I shared with them, what was going on for me and why I needed that time for myself to work on myself and not to be surrounded by a bunch of drunken, crazed, sexy people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we are going through a major shift in the world right now.
Yes.
When you think about, on Tuesday, major shift here in New York, transition of power from a governor who admits that he has inappropriately touched many women. He doesn't deny it. I think he is in denial as to the inappropriateness of it. But we have now a woman governor for the first time in our history here in New York coming in. So there is this major shift taking place in the entire world.
In Nevada, we actually have more females in politics than males. That was amazing to get past that 50% mark because it's a very male-dominated industry, just like music is, and many other industries. So it's interesting to see the shift. Women represent more than half of the world, and yet we aren't represented fairly in any market other than the sex industry, probably. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. I didn't do the research. So don't quote me on that. But
I wanted to mention that I did a show many, many years ago called Beat the Air. And Beat the Air was based on the New Bedford, Mass. Rape case in which a woman was brutally gang raped in a bar in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And that is the catalyst for the film Accused that Jodie Foster did. They changed the storyline somewhat.
You have to.
But I remember one of the lines from which was from the transcript of the court trial, in which one of the attorneys said that if this woman had walked into this bar completely naked and lay down on the pool table, spread eagle, that still did not give one person the right to violate her. And one thing that came away for me is that when a woman has been raped, or a man too, for that matter.
Correct. We have a man in our musical because we do want to represent that situation as well. It does happen. There's a statistic of 1 in 6 for the men.
It's not just the one time. It happens over and over and over again because of the scrutiny that society places on the victim.
Correct.
And as you were coming out, if you will, with your truth and starting to live your authentic self, what were some of the roadblocks that you were experiencing from the people around you? And were you able to, with your own outing yourself, were you able to out the person who did this to you?
I chose not to, and that's one of the issues that is very prevalent in victim mentality. One is that you don't want to be the victim again, and that's how our legal system is designed, is that you'll be victimized over and over. You're going to be scrutinized. You're going to be questioned. You know, you brought up some really important issues. What are they wearing? How are they behaving? Are they intoxicated? You know, obviously as a 5-year-old, I was none of that. I was just an innocent person who was taken advantage of. I do believe that for people to hurt other people, they must be hurting. And that the person my perpetrator, came from a background of abuse and has his own truth. And that's why I think it's so important not to make it a blame shame game and pointing fingers. My musical is very much about, okay, this is what happened and how do we move forward? How do we take this truth and then live our best life? Because we can't take it away. We can't go back and fix it. We can't make sense of it. When I went to the YWCA, my therapist asked me if I wanted to press charges. Throughout the United States, every state is different. There is a statute of limitations for how long you have to press charges. I chose not to press charges because the abuse stopped when I was 12 and we had talked about it. And he was somebody that I really cared for and loved and enjoyed being around. And as long as the abuse wasn't going to happen again, I felt safe enough. I did confront him as well when I came out to my family. And then when I had my first long-term boyfriend, when I was 19, I approached my perpetrator again to say, hey, listen, you know, this had long-term effects and you need to know, you need to be aware of it. I felt safer in that environment than going through the legal system. And that's unfortunate. That's something that we as a culture really need to look at. We need to examine that. And we need to see how we can be more supportive of the victims.
Have you seen the new documentary on Rita Moreno?
I have not.
You have to see it because she talks about the sexual abuse that she experienced early on in her career in Hollywood.
Yes.
The effects that it had on her. And I don't want to, I'm not going to give away the spoilers right now. But going through this as a child, how are you able to just function as a child and the normal day-to-day machinations of life with this going on? This wasn't just something that happened here and there. This continued through most of your childhood.
Yeah, through the formative years, basically, right? And then, unfortunately, I had another sexual abuse situation in my 20s. It was a gentleman I shouldn't call him a gentleman. It was a person from a record label, and he had been a friend of mine for a year. And he had never hit on me. He was married. We went to concerts. We hung out. Never thought anything would be wrong. We were just friends. And I was living in New York City, and he came out, and he was with a person, a singer. I won't say the name. But he invited me out, and he date raped me. He slipped a roofie in my drink. And it was shocking to wake up and have these snapshots of memories and then go, what? Like, how does this happen? How could somebody that I knew and trusted, and I had to tell my best friends, I can't trust you right now because this happened to me. And so, the PTSD of it is like, whew, I can't trust anybody. And of course, then that piggybacks on I couldn't trust my own family, people who were supposed to be there, protect me, love me, and treat me with respect and kindness. So, I mean, there's a lot of layers. Like you mentioned the layers at the beginning of this. I have 3 daughters. My first daughter, when she was born, she looked exactly like me. I gave birth to my clone. That was really challenging, and how do I break the cycle so that I'm not putting them in a bubble and not letting them have their life and trying to protect them, which oftentimes doesn't work out, but still protect them and give them the lingo and give them the body autonomy so that they understand. And so there's just so many layers. It's wonderful that you asked that question. It's a great question. And I think I've got a couple of books inside me. And one of those books,
no, I think that's wonderful.
Parenting book probably is going to deal with a lot of that because it's huge. It's really huge. And breaking the cycle for me is my point of power. That's where I can say, okay, I've already healed from it. I've stood up to it. I've healed from it. And now I want to heal others. I want to spread that knowledge and experience. We all deserve it. Nobody deserves to be abused, but everybody deserves to be healed.
Well, it's amazing as we are living now in a more woke world. And as you're watching movies, television shows, especially television shows from the 60s, and I'll be watching things at night and I'm going, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And as children, we were watching these things and things that, were perfectly acceptable then. What do you think was the major shift change with everything that created this change in our culture to get people to say, enough, this is it?
Well, I think it's been going on in many movements throughout time. I think that when women fought for their right to vote, I think the feminist movement, I think fighting for equal pay, we still are so far behind. We still have not gotten there. Some cultures are doing a lot better than the United States.
But doesn't it amaze you? There are certain women, and I will name one, Marsha Blackburn, who is, it seems as if she wants women to go back instead of pushing for the rights of most women, for women's rights to choose, for reproductive rights and everything. It amazes me when these women come along who want to push everything back. I think everything should be an individual choice across the boards for everything.
Ideally, that would be great, but we would have to have autonomy from the beginning. And as soon as we sign up for that Social Security number, we've already given up some of our freedom and some of our sovereignty. So, it's tricky. I think we're making a lot of progress, but I think we have a long ways to go. If you look at the Olympics, it's crazy. Like, it starts with the way that women are sexualized. So, if you were mentioning if she was naked on a pool table, legs spread, she didn't deserve it. Absolutely. But how is it that in the Olympics, a beach volleyball team is getting fined because they don't wear skimpy bottoms? They put on bike shorts. If anything, the bike shorts might make them not perform as well, right? They've got more fabric. Well, they're taking that risk upon themselves. But to sexualize it and make it, if it was a boys volleyball team, they're not going to do that. They're not going to say, oh, we're going to fine you. And Pink was the one, the musician from the United States. Yes. She was the one who paid the fine. I believe it was the Norwegian beach volleyball team that got fined. And so we're making progress. But, I believe in the ripple effect. I think it starts with one person. I think one person comes forth, one person says, this is not okay. This needs to change. And then there's a ripple effect. And so
I'm going to ask you a question that I've never even thought about until this moment. You have 4 children. Am I right?
Yes.
I'm the oldest of 4.
Okay.
How do you, as a mom, bring up 4 children to really live their authentic selves, to really be an individual in their own individual right?
That's such a great question. So I let them make choices from the very beginning. They are in charge of what they eat. They're in charge of what they wear. I use Love and Logic, which is a wonderful system where you give 2 choices, both of which you agree with, so it's not like, do you want to eat candy bars or Rice Krispie treats? You're going to say, do you want to have broccoli or corn with dinner?
Mm-hmm.
And it empowers them, and it gives them that ability to tune in with what they want. A lot of what our culture does is programs us away from ourselves.
That's right.
So you eat at a scheduled time and you do this. Some people are born scheduled and some people are not. So if you eat when you're hungry, maybe that adheres to a schedule and maybe it doesn't. But if you eat when you're hungry, you're not going to overeat, and you're not going to eat for the wrong reasons. And so I think it's just really about being present. I'm an energy worker, so I do Reiki and meditation and yoga, and my kids are raised with that. They were born at home. They were born in the water. You don't have to do it that way, obviously, but if it doesn't start out with the introduction of drugs and violence and stuff like that, then it's not something that you have to undo. And so we also homeschooled our children until this year. The quarantine schooling was not the same as homeschooling. So our oldest and our youngest decided to go to school, and they started August 9th. We've already done 2 weeks of school here in Vegas. It's hot, and we start and end very early. And the other 2 are still homeschooling, and I teach them to follow their passion and do what they love and listen to their bodies from the very beginning. From the time they're a baby, from the time they're born, from the time they're in my belly, even before they've been born, I'm already communicating that to them. And I also believe very strongly in leading by example. So that's a huge way that I parent. I don't do, like, do it because I said so. Well, I'm not like that. I lead by example, and then they follow. And if they see somebody who's loving and kind and giving, they're going to follow that.
Now, you wear many hats. You are a writer. You are an actress. You are a singer. You're a wife. You're a mother. Out of all the hats that you wear, well, let's talk about the artistic hats. Which of those hats fits you the easiest? Which fits like a glove for you?
Oh, I'm really loving writing musicals. I feel like that checks all the boxes for me. I grew up playing piano, classically trained, and it all fits in, though. Like even the energy work that I do, the musical, the Me Too musical, came to me in a vision before 2 years before I started writing musicals, and I don't know why I'm seeing this. I have no idea what to do with it. I don't write musicals.
What was the trigger for you to write a Me Too musical?
Well, to be honest, my boss from the film industry, Ken Greenblatt, he's in New York, still working. I was a unit production manager for him when it was Akiva Films. Now he has a company called Ducks in a Row Productions. I met up with him in New York. My husband was doing a run with Barry Manilow. This was August of 2019. And I showed up for the last half of it, and I went to 11 plays and musicals in 14 days and started dreaming in musicals. And I met up with my boss, and I said to him, we were catching up after many years. I had seen him when I was pregnant with my now almost 10-year-old. That was the last time I had seen him before this trip. And, I said, well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm good at. I'm done having babies. I know I'm good at that. They're amazing. It's wonderful. But what do I do now? And I told him 2 film ideas that I had. And I told him about the Me Too musical. And he said, Valerie, this is so important. It's so necessary. Hire a writer if you don't, because I said, I don't write musicals. I don't know what to do. He said, hire somebody then. Of course, he's a producer, so he knows how to get things done. And that's fine. You can just farm it out. So I started writing. Ken Davenport's 30-day script writing class came up in my
Ken Davenport.
I love him. I'm part of it. I was part of his inner circle back in February 2020. And I was working on the musical, the Me Too musical, and he's just a wonderful person, a wonderful talent, and it's amazing how things fall into place. There's divine timing, there's universal life energy. And when you're doing something from your heart, everything just happens. So it feels almost like magic, like I've got fairy dust and a magic wand, and I'm like, whoo, I know you do. But the ruby slippers, I still don't have.
I know, I've got my ruby slippers right here, everyone. They're at my desk, my believe sign,
Right?
all here.
My daughter was in a Wizard of Oz production when she was, I don't know, 8 years old or something. So she has ruby slippers, but I still don't. I guess I need a pair of those, huh?
There's a pair on eBay for sale for $25,000. I saw it yesterday. Someone told me.
Okay, when my musical makes it big, I'll be buying those.
I love the fact that you say when instead of if. When.
Right? When. Right, absolutely. I have a funny Judy Garland story.
I want to hear it.
Not only Bill Porter and the gentleman that I used to work with telling me stories about Judy Garland, behind the scenes and the truth and everything. But I met Lady Gaga, and she said, "Oh, Michael Bearden, her conductor, Michael, look at her skin. Look at her. She's so beautiful. She looks like Judy Garland. She reminds me of Judy Garland." This was at Nomad after her show, and Brian Newman is hosting. It's his night. And then at the end of the night, she sought me out and she said, "Bye, Judy." So I would love to have Lady Gaga on this production. I know that she has a Me Too experience that she's been very open about. And, I'm thankful for the talent that we had for our fundraiser. We had Anne Martinez, who's incredible. She was in jazz. We had Ms. Monet, who's a force of nature. And Eric Jordan Young from Broadway. Wow. And then Alexa Sapienza, who played the little girl. She's 7.5 years old. She was 5.5 when I started writing the musical. And her father, Al Sapienza, the actor, he said, "Val, I want Alexa to play the part." And I go, "Al, this is a really heavy topic. I don't know." So then I shifted it. So it's a stepfather that is the abuser. So it's somebody that doesn't exist in her world. But yeah, it's been quite a process. Well,
it's funny that you just said that, because my next question was going to be, what is your process for writing this?
It just coming from the heart and really getting into the characters. The characters themselves tell me, they reveal themselves to me. So, it's not about me, even when they're based on some of my experiences, because of course I want it to be authentic. Authenticity is hugely important to me in every realm. And so I'm speaking from a place. I'm also studying a lot to find out about other people's real experiences so that the voice is authentic. But then the characters really come to me and they become, I become them or they become me, and their voice comes through as I'm writing. It's really not about me. I love The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, her book, and The Vein of Gold. It's something my grandmother gave it to me when I was 22. Yes. All of her books are amazing, of course.
You and I are soulmates.
Yes, we are. I told you you're an old friend that I just
Oh my God.
So
I'm doing a book club based on this book.
I'm doing a Julia Cameron book club too on Facebook. I'm part of some groups.
Are you really?
I do my morning pages on that too.
Every morning.
Yes, the morning pages. And you know what I've done since I was 22, and my grandmother gave me The Vein of Gold. So I used to.
On my bookshelf.
Yes, I used to live right near Central Park in the Lincoln Center. I was at 64th and Amsterdam, and I would walk, because she talks about the soul, like the soles of your feet and your soul, the connection to your soul. And I would walk across Central Park every day, and I would write my morning pages. But I thought I was being funny at 22 and a little jaded, maybe. So I would write my morning pages instead of MORN. I would write MOURN. Like a morning. And I still do my morning pages, and it's so great. It's so good to just get all of that stuff out and then move forward. Then you're an open vessel. Once you let out the stuff that needs to come out, then you can become like where there's that energy, that movement from your toes to the tip of your nose to your crown, out your fingertips, and it just comes. It's amazing. Oftentimes it comes in the shower or in bed sometimes while I'm sleeping.
Well, as you know, she refers to them as aha moments.
Yes. And oftentimes when I'm trying to fall asleep and there's like that stuff going on. So I keep a small recorder, a little voice recorder that's specifically for that, because I find that when I was using my phone, it was like, oh, I got to find the icon that's got the voice recorder. Right. And so I like to keep as little separation between the moment. And so I have the little voice recorder specifically. That's all it does. Boom. And
now, are you here in New York right now?
I am arriving in New York on Tuesday.
Okay. So you're not here for the concert tonight?
No, I had a ticket for yesterday. I actually had a ticket for last Wednesday and then yesterday. And I have a lot going on and the 4 kids, and I'm leaving. I'm doing a sort of a big trip. I'm going to Portugal and Spain. I have a company called Global Soul Retreats, and we host transformative retreats in exotic locations. So I'm doing some footwork for that, for a retreat that we're going to host the following year. So I'll be at Ibiza Yoga. Check it out, ibizayoga.com. They've been around for 21 years. My friend Daniel Hart and Sarah Robbins, they run it, and it's amazing. I haven't been to Ibiza. I'll be there September 4th, so I'm so excited. And I'm hubbing out of New York because I also am going to go to the opening nights of Broadway. So I get back the 13th. I go to Chicago on the 14th. I go to American Utopia on the 17th, and I'm going to fill the 15th and 16th. I was originally going to do a preview of my show, not the show, but just some of the music, and I might still do that on the 16th. But because of COVID, the venue I was going to use, and then I'm like, I have to take a test to get out of the country. I've got to take a test to get back in the country. So it's a little tricky to arrange everything to then like, oh, sorry, didn't plan on this. So I might fill it instead with shows. And of course, Wednesday, there's the matinee and the evening show. So I'm super excited. I'm looking at Hadestown and, some ones I haven't seen before.
Now, how are you able to plan in the midst of a pandemic? And I want to ask you, what did your calendar look like when everything shut down a year and a half ago? A little over a year and a half ago. Yeah.
I mean, it was, I really crashed and burned because I was in New York with Ken Davenport with the most amazing people. I took a class with Kathleen Turner. I was so inspired. I was so passionate and fulfilled. And I was supposed to be back every 90 days. And instead, I really felt like I just crashed and burned, and I had to just focus on the moment now and just keeping everybody safe, keeping everybody sane, happy. So we did a lot of fun things. Every day we looked at gratitude. Celebration is very important to us as well. And so every day we talked about what we were grateful for, and then we made it fun. We did things like roller skating at 1:00 in the morning. Why not? The 3-year-old got to learn to roller skate, So we worked out. We played a lot of games. We did a game called Pandemic.
Oh wow!
Yes, it was amazing. I ordered.
So how did you play? What are the rules? I want to hear about it.
So you kind of work as teams in a way, but as individuals, you could be a scientist, you could be a researcher, and then there are certain places. There's the CDC, and then there's the pandemic, and it spreads. And there's all these different cities. Of course, we know the cities is where it spreads a lot faster because of the density of the population, and maybe the density as well. We don't know. Still deciding. And then you try to find a cure. And so it was really exciting when we were able.
Is this a game that you created?
I did not create it. No, I found it on Amazon, but it's a fabulous game. We also watched some movies, that were related to pandemics and things. Even Little House on the Prairie had one where there was a plague. We played the Game of Life. That was another one that was really fun for our family. And Uno and things like that. And just trying to make our time special and fun. We're really, really lucky. We have a swimming pool and jacuzzi and a huge trampoline in our backyard. We live in a neighborhood where it's an older neighborhood in Henderson outside of Las Vegas.
I know Henderson, yes.
Yeah, we're in Green Valley. And so we've got wide streets and we could go out and do things, safely. The parks were closed. That was different for us. But we also have, my mother owns a house next door to ours. And we had actually just taken it over and we were calling it the Playhouse. We have an art studio. I'm an artist. I love to paint and acrylics. So we have an art studio set up. It's really nice. It's got a cement floor. So we can drip paint. We can make a mess. And then we can shut the door. So it's nice if the kids want to say, hey, Mom, can I go paint? And I can always just say yes. Instead of when we didn't have the art studio, it's like, oh, big production, setting up and breaking down and cleaning up. So, and we have ping pong and air hockey. So we just tried to make it as much fun as we could. We also have a recording studio that's around the corner from our house. So we were able to break it up in that way. But I think focusing on celebration and gratitude was a big thing. So we did the things that we love. We love to cook. We love to eat good food. The kids all learned how to make sushi. I used to be the only one, and I was like an assembly line, making the sushi. But we started doing it once a week, and so everybody learned how. We were making sourdough, which we had done before. And oftentimes, we were baking our own bread until flour became difficult to get. So, every day brought its own challenges and excitement. And I think just meeting them and embracing them and holding a wide berth. I mean, you have to be a lot more open and forgiving and understanding. We just don't know what anybody's going through at any given moment.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. And we all had COVID back in September of last year.
Wow.
And I'm a long hauler, so it's been rough. But you know what? Just grateful for every day and everything that I learn. I believe that trauma, abuse, illness is just an invitation for health and love and growth. So I focus on that and find the ways, like, what is my body telling me? What is it? What does it want me to know so that I can move to that next level of health and wellness and being? Yeah.
So what's the next step for the musical? What's next?
Well, I have, of course, the Global Souls Retreat trip that's going on over the next 3 weeks. And then Broadway.
3 weeks?
What's that?
You'll be gone for 3 weeks, or?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I'll be in Europe for 2.5 weeks and then back. So I start in New York and then back in New York and then 5 days of Broadway musicals. I might still host a small party. I have Ms. Monet scheduled to come in because she's performing in Atlantic City on the 17th. So I have Alexis Sapienza. She lives in New York. And I have Michelle Jones, who's my violinist. And she also scheduled a trip. She's like, it's fine. I can cancel, no problem, if it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So I'm really lucky to have that kind of support. And then my friend Tish Diaz, who's an amazing keyboardist, and she's with Pretty Woman, the music of Bryan Adams, and she's in rehearsals. So I have her scheduled to play piano. So we might just do a little private function with some select people who might be interested in being investors, backers, sort of a backers audition. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, you have to be very flexible and open during these times, and the magic will just happen. And the next step for me, I'm also shooting a documentary, and that's going to be happening late October to the middle of November. So probably towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year, I'll work on a more full production. And a lot of people have encouraged me to do it here in Vegas. So,
and is the documentary in conjunction with the musical, or is it something completely different?
Everything in my life is related and aligned, but it's kind of different. It's about holistic centers, and it's about women, empowering women, and kind of telling their story of how a healing center, changed their life and empowered them, and how then they're spreading it forward to empower others. So. related and different.
I love that. And have you already started working on that, or?
Yeah, we did a little of pre-production and just a few shoots back in June.
And how are you finding the women to be part of that? Or are you still looking?
Well, we are looking right now. And we actually shifted our focus. It was a little more vague beforehand. It wasn't specifically about women. It was just about holistic retreat centers. And so, we're learning. Again, the project tells you, it comes to you and it tells you what it is and what its voice sounds like and what's necessary. And the world around us is part of that. It's telling us, what do we need to know? What do we need to focus on?
Well, I want to ask you, what is the biggest impact that the pandemic has had on you over the past year and a half and counting? Beyond the obvious, the things that we've all gone through, things that has changed you that you will carry through for the rest of your life, you think?
That's a great question. I love that you're asking that. One of the things that happened for me is I had to break it down to the basics. And I looked at doing every single day, doing something for my body, my mental body, my emotional body, and then my spiritual body. And making that part of my routine, my daily routine in the morning when I wake up, bookending it with my bedtime routine so that when I go to sleep, I've also done that work. And it's had an amazing effect on me as an artist, as a person, as a parent. And so I will continue that forever. And I'm very grateful for being given that opportunity. I had a morning routine and a before bed routine, but it was very, it was like making the bed and booting the laundry and you know what I mean? It was just very basic and about routines, and it didn't expand as much. So even though I was doing yoga and I was meditating and things like that, it wasn't per se part of the routine. And, and now it is, and I won't ever give that up. And I'm grateful for the shutdown for giving me that. I feel like when we're without, we need to go within. And that's when we'll find out. That's when we'll figure out what we need, what it's about. I started writing 5 different musicals. I really couldn't work on the Me Too musical for a long time when the shutdown first occurred, because it is so personal and, it's difficult. It's a difficult topic to deal with. And so I started working on other ones, and I'm very excited to bring those to the world as well. They all have certain things in common. I deal with issues that we need to talk about, and they're not necessarily easy to talk about. And, but I bring it forth in a way that's very palatable, and it's about, celebrating and moving forward and not focusing on what's wrong. It's, as humans, we're all having the human condition, and we are more similar than we are different.
Absolutely.
At the end, no matter what. And so it really deals with that. Each of the musicals is about that human condition and connecting us. And when we feel connected, we can move forward and we can resonate on a higher level. When we're disconnected, that's when it's really, really challenging. Yeah.
Now, as we are winding down, I have some generic questions. I put together these questions, and then I draw a few that I pulled for today. And these are just questions that I put together.
Love it.
When have you been the most shocked in your life?
I had a relationship with a woman in college, and when I told my mother, she did not take it well, and I was very shocked. I thought of all the people, my mother is a very unconditionally loving person, very accepting and very helpful. And I was very shocked by that because I didn't even think it was a big deal. I mean, I know that you've talked to some of your guests about coming out and, the process and how it's a big deal. And to me, I really thought telling her was going to be no big deal at all. So that was the most shocking for me.
Okay. Who is your greatest hero from history?
Oh, my grandmother. my grandmother, when she was 5 years old, her father had a stroke and he was in a wheelchair, and she started working professionally as a pianist at 7 years old. She was in the Walnut Room at the Marshall Fields, the original Marshall Fields in Chicago. And in the 60s, she started a child welfare agency called Sullivan House. And she was the one in 1987, maybe even 86, she took on the first AIDS babies, the first crack babies. She took on everything the city of Chicago did not want to deal with. Sullivan House they would create programs to help the people and to help a lot of those babies were abandoned. They were not, they were put up for adoption. The parents didn't want them and nobody wanted to deal with them. And so she created programs for all of that. And she's the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. In the history, there's no book I've read about anybody more incredible than her. Her name is Janice Greer. She passed away in 2010, but
wow.
I'd like to acknowledge who she is.
That's great. What's the best telephone call that you've ever received or made?
Whoa, that's, that stumps me.
Well, you can call me later and
right. I'll call you later. That'll be it. I guess probably giving birth to my first child and the first phone call to talk about the success of her birth and her name and who she is and everything. That was probably. I don't know who was called first. I actually, a family member for sure.
Okay.
I know I called a gentleman who's like a father figure to me. I think he's probably the first person that I called outside of the family.
What's the greatest event that you've ever attended?
Well, besides the births of my children, because those are amazing events. There's so many great concerts I've been to, art exhibits, that's really, and travel. Those are the three things for me that are incredible, but I don't think that I can pick one because I've been so blessed to have so many incredible experiences.
Great. What is your most shallowest side?
Well, I think I get triggered the most with my mother, and I'm not myself. I have a much shorter fuse with her. I get angrier faster with her, and then I always feel bad about it later. Why do I treat her like that when I care so much about her? Mm-hmm. And I think that it can be challenging. The closer somebody is to you, the easier it can be, and maybe it's an opportunity to look within. I'm very hard on myself. And so I guess the people closest to me, I might be harder on them as well. And then as it expands outward, I'm easier, more accepting. So yeah, I'm working on that though.
Okay.
And I'll work on it more since you brought it up.
What's the best thing that you've ever found?
Oh, I love heart-shaped rocks. I love to find heart-shaped rocks. I feel like those are signs from the universe, and four-leaf clovers. I've always found four-leaf clovers. We lived across from a huge park when I was growing up, and it just seemed, all I had to do was think, I'm going to find a four-leaf clover, and I'd look down, and there it was. And I've done it at the park near my house called Fox Ridge, and it's worked. So I think those are I'm Irish, half Irish. My maiden name is Dylan. So for some reason, those two things really speak to me.
Okay. Who is the nosiest neighbor that you ever had?
Oh my goodness. I have the best neighbors in the world. No, you're not going to believe this. My fourth child was born outside at 2:03 in the morning under a total lunar eclipse, full moon. This was August 18th of 2016. So we just celebrated her 5th birthday. She was born outside in the jacuzzi because I was going to go out there for early labor. And there was no time. I like to have the babies in water. I have spinal cord injuries, so the water makes it a lot easier for the birth. And it's also a really pleasant way. They're already encased in water inside of you, and then they move into warm water. And so it's a nice transition. And my best friend came over. I free birthed. So my first 3, I had a midwife and doula and my whole little crew. And for the last one, I just did my family and my best friend. And my best friend, she has 7 kids of her own. Some were home birth, and she had a granddaughter at the time. And so she said, "Oh, Val, there is no time to fill your birthing tub. You're having the baby out here." The next day, my husband posted, or maybe that night, he posted on Facebook about her birth. And the neighbors on both sides couldn't believe it. They had actually been outside at that time, and they had no idea the baby was born. So I'm going to say I don't have nosy neighbors. I have fabulous, wonderful, supportive, loving neighbors. My neighbors are like family to me.
That's
they
great.
Really are. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And my last question is, when have you most shocked yourself?
Oh, I get these voices, right? And so when I was turning 30, I was working on an album. I was with my mentor, John Ovnick, and he had Deaf Dog Records in Chicago. And I had a big party at the recording studio for my birthday. And my friends, only the little inner circle were allowed in the office because it was my costume designer and my makeup artist and my very best friends and my mom. And they said, "Oh, well, you turn 30 at midnight, and we don't want to have to wait till then. Let's do a champagne toast now, and you make a wish." And I made a wish, and I was shocked because the voice was like, "Oh, I want to, I've lived my life. I've done all these things. I want to settle down, start a family. I want someone who's really fun and funny and a great father, artistic, successful at it, so they're happy, preferably musical." And then I met Joey Melotti 6 days later. So yeah, that was the most shocking. But I get little voices like that. And it's always a little bit of a shock because it's like, wait, what? Where did it come from? It's not something that I'm like focusing on. They come like a spark, almost like a little flame. So, and most recently I was on a yoga retreat in Tulum with Karine Plandate and Mochi. I don't know her full name straight off, but both of them are from Broadway. And first night of the retreat, we had a little sunset ceremony, and I thought, I have to go on every retreat these ladies host. I just love this. This is life-changing. It's feeding my soul, my spirit. And then the strange voice comes in. It sounds just like me, but I don't know where it comes from. And it said, "I want to host my own retreats in exotic locations." And then that's where Global Soul Retreats was born. So yeah, it's just that little inner voice and that spark, and it's really a soul connection.
Well, somehow I feel that we have a soul connection.
I feel that way
I
too.
am so thrilled that you said yes to being here. Rose Apuzzo, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rose.
Don't go anywhere yet. I want to thank everyone for being here today. You could have been anywhere for the past hour. The fact that you chose to spend it with us, I don't take lightly. So thank you for being here.
I thank you as well.
If this is your first time here, please, please, please subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates right here on YouTube. My goal is to celebrate everybody. Please subscribe. If you indeed enjoyed today's show, please hit the like button, leave a comment on YouTube, and share it with your friends. The more people who know about this, the better it is for all of us. And take the time to watch another video, either the ones that I've already done or the ones that are coming up. I've got some exciting people coming up this week, including Leslie Ann Warren. So please tune in. And also, I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list. Go to the third name that pops up and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean in your life. Because as my dear friend David Friedman says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. and you never know what someone else is going through right now. You said that earlier in the show, Valerie. So, you know, it's true. But I say, if you're going to be out and about, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now,
I love that.
I'm going to leave the screen. I'm going to give you the final word. Anything that you want to talk about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now or in the future, it's your platform. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Richard. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you, and thank you for giving me this wonderful platform to express myself.
Thank you.
It means a lot to me.
Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give to the world.
My pleasure and my honor.
It's all yours. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This is what I want to say. I am so grateful for all of you. Thank you. I love you. I see you. I believe you. I am you. I know you. And again, I love you. That's it. That's all for now. Mwah!